14 has many issues. Yet, truly, I don't believe any of those issues are unfixable. However, despite knowing solutions exist, I sometimes doubt that they will be fixed. And that's a problem. It's a problem that lies in the Final Fantasy XIV patch cycle. Hello Void, it's Eldon. This week we are going to talk about how 14 releases content and why issues emerge from that. As a big disclaimer on the front, I'm going to explicitly avoid talking about the actual content that is released, both the quality of it and how it's distributed. Those topics will lead us astray from the main point of this video and really deserve to be talked about on their own. Also, sorry for not releasing a video last week. I've been kind of busy, and the time I allotted to make that video, I instead spent binging half of Witch Hat Atelier. It's just so good. I mean, the world, the magic, they're both amazing. And the way the main theme of the story interweaves with the lessons that Coco learns. The anime is going to be so good, I'm so excited. But enough about that. If you enjoy these videos about 14, please subscribe. And if you do want me to talk more about Witch Hat Atelier, you can leave a comment and I might just do it. Now, on to the thing we're actually here for. The Final Fantasy XIV content release cycle, and why it smothers hope for the game. There are a few things that I mean by this. Overall, 14 is a game with a lot of promise. It's a game that can definitely be better. Not that I think it's bad. I think it's pretty good, and I think that it is improving, but I also think that it's hard sometimes to believe that it is improving. And that is pretty much because we don't get updates frequently enough. I mean this in two ways. The first is the actual time it takes between patches, and the second is the infrequent communication from the devs. Let's start with the time between patches because that is the more solid of these. Relatively recently, 14 moved to a 4-month patch cycle. This means that we only get a major patch once every 4 months or so, 19 weeks. This change was made so the devs could have a better work-life balance, and so that they could put more interesting content into the game. I think that first reason is a really good thing. I'm really satisfied that they're taking more time, and I'm happy for them. However, that doesn't stop this change from having really rough negative externalities for the rest of the game. Let's dive into the ways in which a longer patch cycle affects 14. The first thing that happens with the longer patch cycle is that we just get content less frequently. I think we all feel, as 14 players, that hunger for new stuff. And when there's a longer time span between new stuff being added, it just feels worse. Shifting to a longer patch cycle made the game feel worse. It feels less full. Regardless of how full the patches are, having more dead space between them will always feel worse. The second issue is that increasing the patch length means that each patch has to prove itself to a higher standard of value. Adding 3 weeks to the patch cycle means that you have to pay more for that patch. If you're consistently subscribing to the game, you're paying, let's say, $15 a month. Yes, I know that if you subscribe for a longer period of time, you get a discount, but the math is just easier at 15, so let's just roll with that. Doing the math out, the average month is 30 days. That means you're paying 50 cents a day to play 14. If we increase the patch length by 3 weeks, then we are paying an extra 50 cents times 21 days, or just over $10, which is the price of an Undertale. Now, I'm gonna stop here, because I truly understand that that math comparison is the sort of argument normally made in the worst possible faith. I think a lot of people would use it as an excuse to say things like 14 bad, and I really want to hammer home the point that I am not saying that. What I am saying is a longer patch cycle equates to an expectation of more value in each patch, and I don't know if I've felt that. I don't know if I felt a lot of improvement since the patch cycle lengthened, and it's that improvement that we would be looking for, rather than any objective metric of the value of any given 14 patch. And at the end of the day, when there are 4 months between patches, that means every patch cycle has to be worth 4 months of sub. I'll say personally, some patches are worth it, but there are some patches that are kind of misses. There are some pieces of content that don't hit the spot. And when there are 4 full months between patches, then you can't have misses, because each patch has to be worth more. If a patch misses, if there isn't fun stuff to do or a good story, it just feels like a waste. And for those of you that are going immediately to the comments to tell me to just unsubscribe, shut up. This isn't about that. This isn't about me. This is about an unspoken stirring in the community that happened because of this change. This is something that can ripple across the whole of the game. It isn't a personal issue. It isn't about me. And if you need to put other people down to make yourself feel more secure about your purchase, just understand that it is okay if the game is worth it to you. If this is the game you like and the game you play all the time, please be happy. That's all I want. The last and probably most significant negative externality from increasing the patch length is that it increases the time between patches. Kind of a self-fulfilling statement, but allow me to elaborate. The reason 14 feels hopeless sometimes, and this is the main thing I'm trying to get with this video, is because the game does not update frequently. The game does not change often. 14 will only ever really change itself at a patch. When the patch cycle lengthened, it also lengthened the time between things changing. This means that if there is a bad balance, or if there's something that is going to happen, it will take longer for that thing to happen. It makes the game unreactive. It makes the game feel worse, and it makes the game feel like it isn't listening to the community, because there's more time between when things are noticed and when things are changed. This is even more compounded by the fact that they won't really make major changes except at the launch of an expansion. The combat system is stale. The community has been saying it's been stale. But because the sentiment only really locked in towards the end of Endwalker, they didn't have enough time or urgency to react before Dawntrail. And because they didn't finish it before Dawntrail, we will have to wait 3+ years for issues we've had to be addressed. They're not going to make experimental overhauls to the combat system in the middle of an expansion. They're just going to let it sit there festering, patch after patch. And since that patch cycle has increased, so too has the time between expansions. Now we have to wait even longer for changes we've been asking for ages now. On top of this, 14's sluggishness when it comes to change means that they cannot iterate effectively. When developing a game that changes over time, it is important to change that game in response to players, in response to feedback, in response to how things should be. And you can't create a perfect system in a bubble. Only by releasing it to others, seeing how they react, and adjusting appropriately will you find great balance. 14 does not change quickly, and that means they cannot iterate effectively. They cannot make some changes in response to community feedback and see how those changes are viewed, because they can only change the game significantly once every 4 months. And if they really mess up or the community really feels unhappy, then they still cannot change except for like once every 3 years. If the game has an expansion that launches with a bad core combat design, it is going to be that way for an untenable period. Half of the new live games that come out can live, die, and live again in the time it takes for 14 to change significantly once. We are like Merry and Pippin, waiting at the edge of Entmoot as they spend weeks in communion just to decide, yes, I think we shall make Black Mage easier to play. And honestly, it's deeply infuriating. In a world of modern games, where games are getting updated frequently, 14's sluggish, infrequent updates make it feel much less responsive, and it makes it feel like change will never come. And this feeling also extends to communication with the developers. I'm aware that my opinion on this is a little bit skewed, especially because I'm an American that does not speak Japanese, so I can't really read what the devs have to say and have to listen to it secondhand. But Creative Business Unit 3 does not really talk about the game that much. We get live letters before a patch that go over what new things will be added, but there aren't places where the 14 devs openly discuss how they feel about the game and how they're looking to change it. They aren't in consistent communication with the community, except for maybe their official forums in Japanese, and it's like 2026, so forums are, well, they are what they are. I understand that this feeling might be more limited to me than some objective truth, but I guess I just don't think we should have to be foaming at the mouth every time Yoshi P talks to Famitsu, translating every single word and coming to the interpretation that he's going to do a Realm Reborn style shift in the game really soon? I mean, it's fun to treat the words of these people like hieroglyphics and try to devise the future from the small scraps we get, but it doesn't make me feel respected. It doesn't make me feel good that we have to do that. I think in the modern day, we should be getting more from 14, more from the team, more from this game. I also want to say that I haven't really been able to present a solution in this video, and I understand that that isn't super productive. The problem is, there isn't a great solution besides asking them to give us more updates. I truly believe that giving them more time as like people to get rest and not work as hard is a just and noble cause. So I don't want them to necessarily put the patch schedule back. Just assess what is going on right now and respond appropriately. More communication, more fruitful updates. Those are the kinds of things that can really make a difference even if the value proposition doesn't change. As a closing note, I do think that this is happening. Square Enix is a highly corporate entity, and while that does mean they are slow to change, it also means that they are highly responsive to negativity. The massive amount of criticism for the game in the last couple of years, though unfocused, has spurred the great beast into motion. Recently, we've seen the 14 team be a lot more responsive. We've seen them make the changes people have been asking for. The biggest example I can point to is them changing Glamour, a request that the community has been asking for ages, and they put it in the .X pack, when normally, and they said this, they would save that kind of change for a new expansion. When prodded, Square Enix can move. They can change things, and they can communicate better. I know this is quintessentially me complaining. I know this is not necessarily productive, but I do think there is hope for 14 to change. I do think there is hope for us to get more updates more frequently. At the end of the day, I like 14. I love this game. I just wish it felt like this game liked me back. I wish it respected my investment and was willing to change in response to what is wrong with it, rather than sit idly for months at a time to fit with some uniform schedule. To call back to an allusion made earlier in this video, when the fires of Isengard burned and the Ents saw it, they moved to action. Maybe if we are consistent, if we speak loudly and not with malice, we too can see a last march of the Ents, and 14 can change for the better. Anyway, that's been me. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I make 14 videos most weeks and still really like the game, despite the fact that like most of the things I do on the surface is complaining. I'm trying to do constructive criticism, but I understand that that's a dying art form, and media literacy is like 50-50. If you have any thoughts on what I said in this video, or any other topics that you want me to talk about, please leave them in the comments. Especially the other topics thing, I'm like running dry void. I need some more stuff to talk about. I might do a series. Anyway, with all that being said, just remember, it's a long road out there, Void. So head south when you can, because heading south feels like walking downhill. Ta-ta.